Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to do a special beef stroganoff. And the reason why I say it's special is because this is my mother's recipe and I grew up on this and it's absolutely amazing. So I wanted to share it with you guys. So here's the list of ingredients you're going to need for this. You're going to need a pound of beef cubes. I use beef for stew. I think it works better. You're going to need a large onion, 1 pack of fresh mushrooms. You can get them whole or you can go ahead and get them sliced like I did, 1 stick of butter, a can of tomato sauce. You're going to need 4 cups of beef broth, or you can use beef bouillon cubes, and then it's just a 1-to-1 ratio. So 4 beef bouillons to 4 cups of water. You're going to need 1 tablespoon of curry powder, 1 tablespoon of mustard powder, and then your salt and pepper is going to be to taste. I'm using pink Himalayan salt and freshly ground black pepper. You're also going to need a 1/2 cup of sour cream and then a little more at the end to put on your finished plate. You're also going to need a pound of egg noodles, and then I just have a little bit of fresh parsley for garnish. And that's it, guys. That's all you're going to need for this amazing beef stroganoff. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put our stove on medium-high, because what we're going to do first is melt the butter, as well as browning the meat. We're going to go ahead and let this get hot and melt the butter, and then we'll go ahead and add the meat to this. I know this looks like a lot of butter, but it's not. It'll be fine. We want this meat to be really nice and brown, and the butter's going to give it a nice flavor. It's also going to be used to saute the onions and mushrooms as well. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and add the meat. And what we want to do is we want to get a nice sear to this before we add the mushrooms and onions. So this will probably take a couple of minutes now that it's getting nice and hot. And I'm just breaking up the meat so they'll cook evenly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a little salt and pepper on the meat while we're browning it. We don't want to add too much salt because the beef broth, as well as the butter, has salt in it. We're going to let this start browning, and we'll be back in a minute to check on the meat. Alright, so we're going to move the meat around. See, it's starting to get nice and brown. And then after this, we're going to go ahead and add our mushrooms and onions and start sauteing that. And we're going to add it with the meat. We don't have to, take the meat out or anything like that. Now the trick to the beef stroganoff for the meat is to cook the meat when everything's all finished in the juice for as long as you can. So after we put all this together, we're going to put it on simmer with the top, halfway on or partly on, and we're going to let this cook for a couple of hours. So my suggestion would be to start this recipe earlier in the day, because the longer you cook the meat, the softer and more tender the meat will be. So we're going to let that cook a little bit more and start sauteing our mushrooms and onions. And I have it almost too high, guys, because like I said, I'm trying to brown it a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and turn it down a little bit once we add our other things to the pot. I'm going to give this a mix. And the meat's not going to be fully cooked. Like I said, we were just trying to brown it and start the meat off first. But obviously it'll continue cooking. Because like I said, we're going to cook this, you know, for at least an hour or two. Once it's all put together on simmer so that the meat can get nice and tender. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead. I'm going to lower it a little bit to medium. And I'm going to go ahead and put my mushrooms and my onions. I'm going to add just a little bit of salt and pepper. I think you should season as you go and season every layer of your dish, in my opinion. That's why I never add a whole lot in the beginning, because I know I'm going to be seasoning each layer with, you know, a little more salt and pepper or whatnot. Alright, so I'm going to give this a mix. That looks great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cooking the onions and mushrooms down a little bit while the onions are sauteing in here and becoming a little translucent. We don't want it to be, you know, soggy or mushy or anything like that, the mushrooms, but we do want to cook it down just a little bit before we add in our stock and tomato sauce. So we're going to go ahead and let this cook down for a little bit. Again, it's on medium, and we'll be back in a minute to check on it. And just give it a stir, you know, every minute or so, you know, just to get everything incorporated nice and evenly cooking. And like I said, you can buy the whole mushrooms, just clean them with a paper towel and then slice them. You want them to be, I don't know, about a ½ inch thick, because you don't want them to be so small that they kind of dissolve in your beef stroganoff. You want them to have a nice bite and size to it. And then the onions I just chopped. And you could chop them however you like. You can dice them, you can chop them, you can leave them, you know, larger. It doesn't really matter as long as the onions are in here. And it smells so good already in here. I could eat mushrooms every day. I absolutely love mushrooms. Now, my younger daughter does not eat mushrooms or onions or anything. She's actually a very, very picky eater. And this is actually one of her favorite dishes that I do for her. And what I do is I just take out the mushrooms and onions. I know it's a little, you know, tedious, but, you know, what we do for our kids. But she's still getting all the nutritions because it's the mushrooms and onions and everything is cooking in the juice. Little does she know. But I just discard the mushrooms and onions and the things that she doesn't like out. And she loves it. She'll eat it. So if you have somebody that's not a big mushroom eater or onion eater, you can always take it out. You're still getting all the great flavors. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and let that cook for another minute. And then I'll go ahead and add the beef broth and tomato sauce. Okay, so the mushrooms have went down a little bit, cooked down a little bit. The onions look great. They're nice and translucent. So now we're going to go ahead and add the 4 cups of beef broth. And this actually has exactly 4 cups in it, so I didn't have to measure it. And this is 2 pounds, which is 32 ounces. I still have my stove on medium-high because we want to bring up the temperature now that we've added the sauce, the juices. I'm going to go ahead and give that a nice mix. Now we're going to go ahead and add the curry and mustard powder. Give that a nice mix, incorporate those seasonings. And this is what is going to set this recipe aside from other recipes. This has such a unique flavor and taste to it from the curry and the mustard. And like I said, guys, I really hope that you give this a try. It's absolutely delicious, the flavor that it gives this dish. It really does set it over the top. Alright, so while this is coming up to a simmer, now's the time we're going to go ahead and taste it for seasoning. Do we need to add any more salt or pepper to this? And like I said, just to your taste, add your salt and pepper. So I'm going to taste it and see if I need to add anything at this point. Okay, to me that's great, so I'm not going to go ahead and add anything else to this. I'm going to partly cover it now so that it comes to a simmer a little quicker. And then that's it. We're going to go ahead and cook it. I'm going to probably cook mine for about 2 hours to get the meat really nice and tender. And then I will go ahead and show you the next step when that time comes. And then we'll be ready to plate and eat. So we'll be back, guys. Alright, guys, while that's finishing cooking, before we go ahead and finish up and add our sour cream, I have a pot of boiling water. I put a little bit of oil and a little bit of salt in it. And I'm going to go ahead and add my egg noodles. And I'm going to go ahead and cook that. It should be about 5 minutes. You want them al dente. You don't want them too soft. You want those to have a nice bite to that. And then we're going to come over here and finish up our beef stroganoff. Alright, so while our egg noodles are going to finish cooking, we're going to go ahead and lower the temperature. I've been cooking mine for almost 2 hours, and I'm going to go ahead and put the last ingredient in, which is the sour cream. So we're going to go ahead and lower it. I had lowered mine a little bit earlier while it was simmering to medium low, and like I said, I had simmered it for a good 2 hours, and the meat is absolutely delicious. I already tasted it, and it's extremely tender. So that's exactly how we want it to be. So to this, we're going to go ahead and add our half a cup or more. You can always put more in it if you'd like. You're just going to go ahead and whisk that together, getting all the clumps of sour cream melted and incorporated throughout. And what it does is it makes it a really nice velvety texture. It thickens up the sauce. Now if you want it a little bit thicker, what you could do is you could do a little slurry, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So I would do a teaspoon of cornstarch to a teaspoon of water. Mix that really good, and then you can go ahead and put it in if you want to make this a little thicker. That looks great. We're going to let this cool down just a little bit, and as it cools down, it'll also thicken a little bit. And while the noodles are finishing cooking, we're going to go ahead and put the cover back on here. Now remember, it's on low so that it stays nice and warm while the noodles are cooking. And then we'll go ahead and plate this, and we'll be done, guys. And that's how easy this is. So I hope you guys liked the video, and if you want to see more recipes like this, make sure to subscribe and turn your post notifications on. And if you make this dish, tag me on Instagram at CookinRexy so I can see your version of it. Enjoy, guys.